Conversations at the Edge with thought leader Mr. Rishabh Nair. Without losing any time, we'll dig into the conversation straight away. Um, Rishabh, do you want to say anything apart from the fact
No,
that
no,
we have
happy, happy to be here. Happy to be here. I never thought I'd be on a podcast, but yes, thanks to friends like you, I get an opportunity. So happy to be here and looking forward to our chat.
Okay, great. So, Rishabh, we'll start with the subject that has been everybody's favorite somehow these days. Actually, the conversation started many years back, but it is only getting heated up, which is brand purpose. So, if we start with what does it really mean? You know, there is a whole sense in agencies that it's become mandatory. You have to come with a brand purpose. Why is this happening? Is this trend being misread by clients or agencies? Is it trying to imply a social purpose, but they looking at the why of it? There is a whole lot of loading too much on this simple term. If you could help us, understand from its very beginning, genesis, like you do, and give us some clarity on this.
Sure. I'm going to try and give my views. I think purpose is one of those very debated topics, and everyone has a take, everyone has a view, and then, we can keep chatting about it. See, I just feel before we get into brand purpose, now let's probably take a step back and just look at the term purpose itself. I'm saying if you look at purpose as just a word, it's something which is what? Perhaps as old as the existence of mankind, right? I mean, if you look at Adam and Eve, I mean, they had some purpose, and therefore, they bit into that forbidden fruit. God perhaps also had some purpose, and therefore was denying them, that fruit. And therefore, if you look at it from a simplistic point of view, all of us have some purpose or the other, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what is the definition of purpose? It's just your resolve or determination for doing something, that kind of gives you reason, gives you a drive, gives you direction in life, and therefore everything's got purpose. I mean, every human being's got purpose, and therefore naturally when businesses came into existence, businesses were started, they also had a purpose. And
Correct.
obviously, to start with, every business had its own purpose, and largely the purpose was about serving a certain need of the society, serving a certain consumer need, making certain amounts of profit for oneself. And that's the larger purpose, which would never have been spoken about. Like, no one would have said, okay, this brand's purpose is to do this. You would largely talk about, okay, this is the benefit of the brand, and this is what it does. But behind it there was purpose, but at that stage purpose hadn't started making it to conversations, right? Then we move into, say, maybe a couple of decades ahead of that, right? What started happening? There was this whole movement of saying, look, these are brands, these brands benefit from the society, they kind of, they feed off the society, but what do they give back to the society, right? That narrative started happening. A lot of social conversation started happening, that okay, should brands have such a capitalistic view about what they do, which is just make profits from the society, or do they need to be somewhere responsible for also giving back to the society that they're very much a part of? And that's where, if you see, I think the first manifestation of consumer facing purpose, which more commonly was labeled as, say, CSR, corporate social responsibility, where brands started saying that okay, I am benefiting and I'm in business because of the society, and therefore let me also give back to the society. So whether it's some brand saying that, look, I'll give back to the society in the form of education, supporting education, someone would support say street children, someone would support some other cause. Every brand somewhere took on a cause that they were passionate about, they felt had a fitment with their organization, and they started talking about that social purpose. But even if you see at this stage, this kind of a purpose was largely the remit of the HR department, right? You typically see the HR guy driving this kind of a purpose. He'd perhaps on a 15th August or on a 26th January do something around it. One number would happen, one photography would happen, one PR would happen, corp communication would happen and all. Still, purpose was very far away from marketing as a word. Marketing was still doing its conventional marketing, benefit-led, functional, emotional, etc. However, now we move again, say, a couple of decades ahead, right? Suddenly you see that marketing started taking interest in purpose. And why did that happen? And according to me, and this is entirely my read, I feel there are two things that came together. I think at one stage, if you look at it classically, we've always told ourselves that marketing is about understanding the consumer and somewhere being in the service of the consumer. I think slowly as a society, if you see, more and more people started to look for more meaningful purposes in their life, right? I mean, suddenly as a society, no longer were we happy just saying that, okay, look, this is what I do. I have a job, I go and earn money, I therefore live, I look after my family. What's my larger purpose, right? Is my larger purpose to make a difference? Is my larger purpose to give back? Is my larger purpose to bring about a cultural change? And therefore, as a society, if you see, as generations, we started somewhere searching for purpose. And the minute that started happening, I think somewhere marketeers started sniffing an opportunity, because, in true marketing style, in terms of being with the consumer, perhaps being ahead of the consumer, they saw that opportunity. They saw the opportunity that, consumers are seeking something deeper in their lives. They are wanting a larger resolve to have in their lives. And therefore they realized the opportunity that why can't brands offer them that? And that's why if you look at some of the classic brands that would classically come to mind, which took on a larger purpose and so on and so forth, that's where I feel brand purpose first came into being, right? And therefore the whole conversation started moving into, don't buy a brand, buy into a brand, right? And when I'm saying buy into a brand, if you think about a lot of brands that, you and I are passionate about, like one of the things which I really find interesting as a piece of trivia is that apparently the Harley Davidson logo is one of the most tattooed logos in the world, apart from the cross, which is the religious symbol, right? And when you look at that, you say, wow, man, I mean, why would a brand symbol be one of the most tattooed logos? And that tells you something about it. And perhaps not even 5% of these people who've got that tattoo would even own a Harley. But what it's telling you is that somewhere this is a group of people who are buying into a larger philosophy, a larger movement which the brand is championing, right? And that's where, purpose, I feel, started coming into marketing, and it no longer remained just a CSR play. And therefore, I think each and every brand started defining its purpose. And for me, that's where the evolution happened. And from there, I think, to answer the next part of your question, that where are we today? Look, I personally feel that every brand does need to have purpose. For me, I think purpose in life is like putting destination into Google Maps. You've got to put out where are you headed, what is it that you're doing it for. Otherwise, where is direction going to come from? Where are choices going to be led out of? So I don't think there's a choice of saying, do I have a purpose or not? I do need to, because I am as much a part of the society, a citizen of the society, as any person is. But I think the choice is about, is that a purpose that drives me, or is that a purpose that becomes an advertising tool? And I think that's where the piece that you're talking about, saying, are some brands, instead of driving purposes, somewhere beginning to misuse purpose? Maybe that's where some of that bit is beginning to happen.
Exactly.
That's what I feel.
That's where that's where the distinction we need to make. So, I love the example that you took, Rishabh, Harley Davidson, because as an explorer brand, the kind of thought it brought into the society, that you could break away and you could escape and you could be on the roads, and that can be a meditative experience. It was so different. It was so different. There were people who were missing that kind of thought, especially at a certain life stage. So it became a cult brand. And that way we have many cult brands, who have come up with a philosophy which is so distinct that, there is a ready segment, even if niche, there's a ready segment, they're ready to pay a premium because they feel validated. Finally, someone understands me, So that is lovely. And that we've been, seeing that we've been seeing brands even before purpose became a buzzword. Now, this whole thing of, like you so beautifully explained, Rishabh, that I want to have a purpose that is larger than my small myopic life, just like it is happening in society, where everyone is trying to reach out for something bigger in their life, and marketers are trying to tap into that ethos. Still, like you said, Sometimes they're getting it right, and sometimes it's downright abuse. It's even a lower form of selling than normal selling, because you are claiming something that you're very, very far away from, and using that you want consumers to prefer your brand. So keeping that context in mind, could you tell us, could you take some definitive examples? When are brands getting it right? What factors do that? When are brands just trying to abuse it and, getting it wrong?
Yeah. No, let's chat about that. And of course, I mean, we can always debate in terms of right or wrong, because I guess the ones who we feel might be getting it wrong will probably strongly disagree with us. See, I feel now fundamentally, when you look at brand purpose, like I started by saying that every brand needs to have a purpose. I am not sure that every brand needs to communicate that purpose. I think one of the distinctions we need to draw is that purpose is a goalpost which should drive your actions as a brand, right? And that's what it's meant to do. And it like I love the example of, if you look at, say, a brand like Apple, right? It's an iconic brand, we all talk about it and so on and so forth. Apple has a purpose of saying that somewhere my purpose is to kind of unlock the creativity inside each and every person. But that's not their advertising, right? They don't put out ads saying I will unlock the creativity inside you, because that's not required. I mean, they're saying that's the reason, that's the guiding light for us to develop our products. So when I develop an iPhone, when I give you a phone in your hand, that should unlock the photographer in you, that should unlock the lyricist in you, that should unlock the singer in you, that should unlock the videographer in you. And that's what Apple products really do. If you think about it, I mean, it's amazing how each one of us, given an Apple product in our hand, can do so much today, right? And where all of us are talking about being extremely creative people, but that's a brand actually bringing its purpose to life. The advertising is still shot on iPhone. The advertising is not I will make you, help you do this, right? And for me, I think that for me is, I think, the most idealized form of purpose, which is let the purpose drive your products, drive your actions, and you don't need to communicate the purpose, right? And at the second level, I've seen that there are brands that they do something about their purpose. The purpose asks you to do a certain act, and therefore they communicate it, but it's still not a communication piece. Like look at this brand like Tom's, right? Where Tom's talks about one for one, right? Which is a simple piece of saying every time you're picking up a Tom's shoe, there is another pair that's being given to someone who's perhaps otherwise struggling to pick up a shoe. Now that's fair, because that's still getting communicated to me as an audience, saying, look, this is what the change that you can bring about when you pick up a Tom shoe. It's still not getting communicated as Toms were doing this, and then so on and so forth. But at the third level, you'll find there are brands which are just communicating something which is, okay, let's change this, let's do this, or let's not do this, and then so on and so forth. And many a times, I think that's where the problem is the biggest, right? That's where I think the term that you use, which is downright abuse, because I think what tends to happen, right? Like without getting into names of brands, I mean, look at when a brand talks about the fact that I will give you the ability to make an identity for yourself, right? And there are at least half a dozen FMCG brands which today are landing this purpose in one way or the other, saying we will give you the confidence, we will give you the ability, we will give you the time. You woman who's at home not making your identity, you go and make your identity. I mean, first of all, someone's got to turn around and say, look, who are you? And what's the role you're playing? I mean, and how can you really do that? I mean, are you really telling me that you're a brand that helps me you're an oil brand that helps me cook in the kitchen, and you're going to help me form my identity? You're going to give me the confidence, and so on and so forth. And I think that's where somewhere, I think, as marketeers, we've got to collectively step back. And I think all of us are guilty of doing some of these pieces, including me. I think we've got to step back and say, look, is this a purpose where we're really going to have a credible role to play? Or am I just taking a stance from a preachy point of view just to be able to kind of become salient, be able to create impact, and be able to sell products. Because the minute you're doing that, the fundamental of a purpose, which is to drive a larger socio-cultural change, that fundamental is lost, because suddenly you've actually started looking at purpose as a proposition, right? And that's where I think somewhere purpose doesn't end up working. Like for me, I think when I look at pieces like Help a Child Reach 5, for me, I think it works very well, because for me, it's clean as a brand, right? You do very, very hard working advertising where you put a guy in a lab coat, he comes home, he talks about how it's the problem of the soap, he changes the soap. That's your advertising. I get it. But at the same time, when you talk to me about a village that you've adopted, and you talk to me about how there are lakhs and lakhs of kids who are not able to reach the age of 5, and a simple act of hand washing can do that, and you're adopting the village is a step in that direction, I vibe with you as a person, because somewhere I'm saying, look, you're making a difference, and therefore let me also help in the way that I can. But I think the moment you start linking the two, the moment you start trying to draw from there and then try and sell more soaps for yourself, I think that's where it becomes a little blurred. That's where it starts seeming like abuse. And I think that's what you've got to keep in mind. I think purpose has to be consumer out. And the moment it starts becoming brand out, the moment you can start seeing the sales pitch in it, I think that's where it starts becoming hollow. And that's where I think it does more damage than good.
So two key things that, threads that we will take forward. One is that when it becomes too large a mantle to profess, that it loses credibility. First, the intention itself is wrong, that you cannot carry it, but you're professing it. And then, it's not even a change that is integral to what you offer. So two very, very key, evaluation parameters: that are you integral to that change, and is it credible for you to be able to say that? Thank you. And along with that, when you said that, even one campaign. So I think that 5 years campaign is for Lifebuoy.
Yes, Help a Child Reach 5.
Yes, Help a Child Reach 5. Now that has got it world fame, international acknowledgement, because it's really, really made a difference. Year on year, analysis has shown that the number of deaths has gone down, and the entire attitude to hygiene has changed.
It's the whole thing, right? They're saying that the purpose of the brand is to help kids who are otherwise, kind of suffering from these diseases kind of live longer, right? So,
right.
In fact, I feel the moment you start linking your functional proposition and purpose beyond a point, you force that link. Like this dishwash brand I was talking about, the linkage that they've done is they've said, because we're a dishwash brand, so their whole pitch is, because we're able to help you do your dishes faster, you will have more time. And because you will have more time, you will be able to create an identity for yourself. Now, it's just so far-fetched, right? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, are you telling me because I can wash my dishes, and first of all, the whole fact that I couldn't create an identity in life because there were dishes that I had to wash is a ridiculous thought. I think somewhere you're insulting the consumer to start with only, right? And then to tell me that 10 minutes of saving time from dishwashing is actually going to make the difference. And so I think that's where brands start getting it wrong. I'm saying, yes, if the same brand wants to take on an empowerment purpose, why don't they do something else? Like, I've always thought about the same brand, and I said, like, I've always got this whole idea, and I think someone somewhere should pick it up in that category. Why doesn't someone champion the whole thing of wash your own plate? It's something that disturbs me hugely. We all sit on the table, we eat our own food, right? Then why don't we wash our own plate? Why do we all just go and dump that plate into one wash basin, and we all then sit in front of the idiot box, and there is a lady who's going to join 40 minutes later who's washing all the plates, right? Yes. And at the end of the day, I'm saying, if the same brand did that, right, saying that let's get everyone to wash your own plate, you'd vibe with that, because the brand's not one trying to sell. It's not trying to link what it does in doing that, but it's still trying to drive a cultural change which should genuinely take place. And that's the difference. I think, like I said, I think the fundamentals of purpose has to be social good first. right? And it can't be about a means to sell. And a lot of people are now using purpose as another positioning strategy.
Now, another thing, another thread of criticism that happens, Rishabh, is that you cannot make a purpose along the way. Okay, now the criticism is coming from a client, the client perspective, that agencies cannot give a brand a purpose because it has to be part of organization's worldview.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of break it into two parts, right? One is that should brands be born with a purpose, or along the way can they kind of acquire one? I feel both are possible, right? Of course, there are brands like, say, an Apple or say a Tom's, which were born with a purpose, right? Tom's came into business only about saying that, okay, giving is good for business, right? That's where he started. So that's great, right? That's the best position to be in, because from the first day, there is a larger reason why you're getting into business than just to say, I'm selling a certain product. However, I do feel that there are enough and more examples of brands who along the way have acquired a larger purpose. Okay, and I'm going to take the example of perhaps the most quoted brand on purpose, which is Dove. Right, you and I have all seen years and years of Dove advertising, which was entirely functional, right? It was just about 1/4 litmus test, testimonials, and so on and so forth, and that's where it was, right? But at some stage, someone on the brand felt that, look, we've got to have a larger role to play. And I remember I was once attending a seminar when I was hearing this lady from the Dove team, and the agency and the clients worked together on it. And she said, we were sitting in a focus group and we were attending research. And in research, we had this one question where we were asking women that, if you were to answer this question about how beautiful do you think you are, what would you say? And they said, to our surprise, all of them would say, I'm not beautiful. And they would all have a long list of things to say, that, oh no, my eyes are not right, my nose is not right, look at my eyebrows, look at my lips. And these guys were like, look, we were sitting on CCTV and we could see these women and we are like, you're so beautiful, what's wrong with you? But that's what they're saying. And therefore, and that's where apparently they cracked that idea in that focus group, in that conversation about saying, why are beautiful women, every woman, why is every woman feeling that she's not beautiful? Because unfortunately, there are stereotypes that have gotten put by other brands, by media, etc. And therefore, the brand took that on in the form of real beauty, right? And therefore, today, if you think about it, today they live that purpose. So the piece that I feel when you acquire a purpose, I feel it's got to be something that's jointly done with the clients and the agency. Because I think otherwise you run the risk of, agencies giving you a purpose which only has a communication manifestation to it. And that purpose, now truth be told, will never survive. Because that purpose will only wake up on Mother's Day, on Father's Day, and you'll do one 60-second long format and you'll get up. Right? The purpose has to be experienced by people, then it needs to become a part of the organization, which means products need to live it, services need to live it, my channel interface needs to live it. And that doesn't end up happening when we come up with these, very ad-like purposes. Right? But I think once you do it together, once you bring in people, whether it's product development guys, it's R&D guys, and you find a larger purpose that the business can actually impact. I think the test that all of us have to put our purpose through is, it's not something that can only translate into an ad. In fact, that's the last thing we should want out of. Right? I think purpose has to be experienced by people rather than getting advertised. I think the moment that happens, like take Dove only for example, and then let's take forward the Dove piece. I love the piece that Dove has done on, when they were launching their anti-aging range. Everyone talks about anti-aging, everyone calls it anti-aging. They were the first brand who labeled it as pro-aging. Pro-aging, right? Look at what a simple, beautiful thought. They said, why is it called anti-aging? What's wrong with aging? I mean, it's a good thing. It's natural. It's something we should embrace. It's something we should enjoy. Why should we be anti it? So it's pro-aging. It's the same kind of product, but it's saying celebrate as you grow old. and therefore even the advertising is not about women looking young, it's about celebrating women looking old. Now that's a brand living up to its purpose, right? Because imagine if I'm otherwise doing real beauty and all that, and I still do anti-aging the way it should be done by the whole category, then that's where, right, the cookie crumbles, because you're not really being. So I feel it can be acquired, but I think it's got to get seeded into the organization rather than just be a thought at the agency which you churn out ads on.
Beautifully illustrated and explained. So the very reason I think the brands moved to a purpose was that something that is very large that I can act on, my behavior will show, I can commit to, it kind of integrates everything I do and will show through everything. But then if it again stays just to communication, it becomes lip service. And I really like that you should be able to experience the purpose of a brand. That's when it's coming true. So Dove has done it right. And I think the beauty, it's so powerful in its, the life that it has taken. It's wiping off insecurities with beauty, which is so inherent in a woman anyways. And the culture and the stereotypes and the norms reinforce it and does so much harm. So great, they took something that has caused real change, right? Positive change.
Correct.
Other criticism that happens, Rishabh, is here's a Unilever which brings a FAL and which brings a Dove. And a FAL is reinforcing fairness as a stereotype, and Dove is saying real beauty. So, okay, fine, even if Dove is doing a great job, how sincere is Unilever in not trying to exploit vulnerabilities and insecurities? Just some time back, this whole Glow and Lovely thing had come about, and I know you worked on the brand. I've also worked on the brand briefly. You had a longer stint with the brand. So how does an organization resolve this? Because Unilever is actually doing a lot of work, which is very cutting edge in terms of enforcing cultural change. I would say enforcing and not even triggering or driving. So how do you think at the organizational level, how does a Unilever resolve this? And also, if you feel there are organizations like Nestle, Unilever, Patagonia, who are doing it right, or they kind of struggling because this is like a new paradigm that has just come out.
Sure. Look, see, I think the challenge when you look at a FAL, and I know that's the one that always keeps getting debated. See, I personally feel that, and I've worked on, FAL across 2 stints. And in fact, I joined on the business when they had done that ad, which kind of made for a lot of controversy in media, which was that Kaash Hamare Beta Hota. Right, which was that air hostess ad where the father said Kaash Hamare Beta Hota.
Iconic ad as well.
Yes. And the reality is that, over the years, it's not like they haven't done. See, what is their purpose? Their purpose is to help women change their destiny, right? They talk to a certain segment of women for whom opportunities, means have always been limited, right? And therefore, they've always been trying to support those women. Now, the reality is, if you look at the kind of work Fair and Lovely does at a grassroots level, they are actually doing a lot of work which is driving genuine change also. Like, I remember we used to have this whole thing called the Fair and Lovely Foundation, which still exists, which has scholarships which it gives out. It has career fairs that it does. It goes into school level. It goes into college level. It tries to change those things. I just feel all of that good work gets undone because you put out an ad which says, if you're fair, you're successful. Right? That's the problem. And that's the problem, right? I don't think when I tell you that, okay, a brand is giving scholarships, a brand is giving career guidance, a brand is going at college level and helping, you'll only say very good, right? But still what you'll question is saying, but still, why is the brand saying you need to be fair to be successful, right? And I think that's the part that somewhere is the tightrope that they have in terms of business versus what they ought to do as the right thing. And I think that's I think the way they've been seeing it is like if you look at, I'll tell you a piece that we did this whole piece called Delay Marriage, when I was on the brand in my second stint, right? Delay marriage came from a very real understanding. And this is a statistic which will bother you. We realize that when you look at data in the 90s, the average age of a woman in India, right, was about 18 years, 9 months, as early as that, right? You'd tend to think that when you look at it in the 2000s, that would have like really gone, way beyond and so on and so forth. It hadn't. It was only 20 years, some months, right? And we realized that at the end of the day, the only difference is that maybe earlier she was like a convent educated bride. Now she's college graduate bride, right? But she's still not managing to do something else. And therefore the brand said, how do we help these women be able to, push back on the load that is given to them about beta shadi kab kara rahe ho? Because everyone's asking beta shadi kab kara rahe ho, log pooch rahe hain beti mein kuch hai, mangli ke kya, shadi kyun nahi kar rahe, blah blah blah. And so therefore if you think about it, that cause that we were trying to champion was the right cause. There's nothing wrong with it. The problem happens when we make the ad, because in that ad, the girl, when the father says you got to get married, she's thinking, oh yeah, maybe I should get married. Then we give her a Fair and Lovely cream, then she applies it and she's confident to go and say I won't get married. And I think that's where the brand gets it wrong. And I come back to the point I was making earlier. I think as brands, we've got to resist this temptation of trying to bring the two together. I'm saying you run two parallel tracks. No, I understand you have a business, you have a product to sell. You talk about fairness in 6 weeks as a standalone piece. And you do a piece about saying, look, she's not studying to get married. I mean, you do ads about saying, are you teaching your son to get married? No, you're teaching your son to have a career. So why not your daughter? And just keep it pure, pristine. People will value you as a brand. I think the minute we try and say, no, let's bring these two together, I think that's where brands get it wrong. I personally feel that it's not like if you don't have a purpose that you're communicating to consumers, you can't build a brand. I mean, I will still go to Kentucky Fried Chicken because it says finger licking good and that's enough. I don't know what is their purpose. Maybe they're helping those buckets get recycled somewhere. I don't know what is their purpose. That's fine for me. I will still enter a Baskin Robbins and have some delicious, because I'm just saying it's not like as consumers, you and I are looking for purpose in everything. So I think somewhere as brands, we've got to be authentic about it. Yes, if there is a larger societal change that we are willing to invest behind and champion, that we should take on. But at the same time, if we feel no, our focus has got to be selling and we're trying to leverage purpose to try and sell products, I don't think that's going to work in this day and age anymore. I think increasingly consumers are seeing through that and they're beginning to criticize it. And therefore, I think it does more damage than good.
Yeah, crystal clear. So with that, Rishabh, let's sum up 5 factors, if you had to mention, how brands should dabble with purpose.
First thing that I would definitely say is ask yourself what is the primary motivation for taking on a purpose as a brand. I think if you say I'm trying to take on a purpose because that is going to be my only tool to differentiation, my counsel is then don't do it. Because then you're trying to use purpose as one marketing tool and you're not giving it the sort of gravitas that it deserves. So I think that's the first thing, that what is your reason? If your reason is the fact that yes, you want to make a real difference to the society, to the culture, etc. And when I'm saying real difference, I'm not saying everyone's got to solve for world peace. I'm not saying everyone's got to solve for pollution. I mean, some brands can even take on the purpose. I find even Tinder saying adulting can wait to be purposeful, right? But the point is, are you really looking at making a difference, championing a change, versus is it just a tool for differentiation? I think that's the first thing. Second, I think somewhere you've got to ask yourself that, is that change that you're wanting to bring about, is it something that is universally sought by the audience? At times I really wonder when I look at some of these campaigns. Like I recently saw this outdoor, okay? There's this outdoor which the woman's face is covered by a dosa. And first I couldn't even figure that what is happening. And then you read the line below and you realize that it's saying, is cooking holding back your identity? I don't think women feel like that today. I don't think, if I talk to today, I think, and I think now somewhere cooking brands need to move on. I don't think why they're stuck on that. I don't think today a woman saying, look, it's cooking ne meri zindagi ka kawada kar diya hai, and if not for cooking, I would have been Hillary Clinton. I don't think that's the narrative anymore. I think a woman is free to do what she wants to do. She's happy to build her own identity, but she chooses to cook as an expression of love. And why can't we just leave her at that? And therefore, I think some of these manufactured purposes, which are manufacturing or trying to inject a tension which probably doesn't even exist. So that's the second point that I would have, saying that, how do you do it? Okay. I think the third thing that I will try and keep in mind is it something that I can credibly play a role in? I go back to that dishwash brand saying, I'll help you form an identity. Sir, I'm sorry, I can't understand how a bar is going to help me create an identity. So that's, I think, the third thing that I would look at, saying, is it just something that I will say hawa mein, and I will just say say it like a jumla, as they say that, okay, Modi ji jumle phekte rehte hain. That I don't think works in this world. So therefore, is there a real difference that you can make? I think fourth would be the fact that, am I willing to invest in that beyond communication? I think as a brand, unless and until you have that sign off from your entire management, I think if it's something that only marketing is driving, I don't think it should be done. Because then it becomes a communication exercise, and that's never going to kind of serve the purpose of the purpose, right? And therefore, I think somewhere you've got to get a buy-in as an organization. Every member of that organization should want to drive that purpose and should want to make that change, and so on and so forth, right? So therefore, that's again something that one's got to try and keep in mind, that are we really trying to do that? Are we really trying to make that difference? And when you look at organizations like an IKEA and all, you will see that at even the last mile, that's something that is happening, right? So that's something that we got to keep in mind. And I need to think of a fifth one. So I think the fifth one's got to be the whole thing of, how do I measure the success of the purpose? I think that's an interesting fifth one, saying, am I going to measure it through share of heart, share of good, share of smiles? I know none of these parameters exist, but why can't we make them, right? We made all these other crazy sounding parameters, right? Why can't we make these why can't share of smiles be a parameter, right? Why can't share of good be a parameter? And then measure these, because I think the moment you put them back to the traditional parameters, you're always going to be in a situation where you're kind of defensive about what your purpose is trying to do. Yeah. So I hit 5. I managed 5. Okay. So those are the 5.